Are we on path to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals?
The world's 2030 expectations are being shattered by rising poverty, climate uncertainties, man-made wars, lack of access to education, unemployment, and global inflation, among others.
These continue to tear at the social and economic fabric of our societies. Our world is at the brink of an economic recession,
And yet, we continue to see governments across the world
failing to include young professionals and young think tanks in the development of transformational policies, strategies, and legislations.
The time for permission has expired.
Young Leaders Alliance of Belize, YLAB, is a non-partisan, independent youth organization that evolved from the Youth Votes Matter initiative.
YLAB aims to champion youth participation in development by being an inclusive, effective, and efficient youth leadership organization that promotes advocacy, networking, research, and capacity building
On all matters youth in Belize.
In the simplest terms, we want youth from Corozal to PG and Benque to San Pedro to become exposed and involved in our national development process.
We will set out to achieve this by hosting trainings in collaboration with universities and local experts, participating in House committee meetings on new legislations, and promoting open dialogue to public forums.
We're appealing to all young Belizeans between the ages of 18 to 35 to join us for what promises to be a transformational process within Belize's development experience.
If you're interested in sustainable development, regardless if it's economic, political, social, or environmental, please reach out to us and follow our social media pages at YLAB501 on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Or send us an email at ylab501@gmail.com.
We welcome Belizeans at home and in the diaspora.
As the time for youth to get involved
Is now.
And good morning. We are moving into our second conversation this morning. We are joined by Minister Rodwell Ferguson, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Transport, as well as Mr. Jermaine Garvey, the Director of International Youth Fellowship, IYF. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, likewise.
We started this morning off with a video by a new group, Young Leaders Alliance of Belize, which is a group that broke out from the initial Youth Votes Matter back in 2020. And we started with this video because we want to show Belizeans that we have in country a lot of young professionals who are doing good work, who are able to be around the discussion table and engage in the development of policies, strategies, and legislations. So that's where we wanted to start. But Minister, you are recently back from the 10th Ministers of Youth World Forum in Busan, Korea. Minister, good morning. Speak to us about your perspective about what you experienced in Korea at this forum.
Well, first of all, it was quite an experience. I was always envisioned that the first world country just be United States of America. But going to South Korea, I see a complete change, a complete difference. And it really opened my mind. I said, man, I think my little country can also accomplish this over a period of time. Unfortunately, our population is very small. Maybe it will be about 500,000. Korea has 45 million people. And so then people work together for their own advancement. And just when I arrived in Korea, just the reception was fantastic. I mean, I never felt that reception anywhere I traveled in the world. And they used the students from the university to receive all their international guests that were coming in. And those students actually pay to be part of that. Maybe in Belize, it would have been the other way around. You have to pay them to participate. And they were very professional. And so it really amazes me. It opened my mind and I said, man, this have to be something Belize have to change to do to accomplish something like this.
So based on your experience and just being immersed in that kind of environment, what are some of the solution strategies that they had talked about at the forum that you think you could bring into Belize and implement it here into our system?
First of all, they are talking about changing the mindset of the young people. That is the first step. If you can do that, then you can transform a nation. And they gave us two illustrations. One, Samson. The dad used to own a noodle shop, just simple noodles. And then he educated his son. When his son got the education, he realized, I can now do something that can transform the entire world. And they created Samsung. And today Samsung is one of the biggest electronic company in the world. And so that really, I don't know, amazes me. And then they also give me the illustration of the guy who owned the company, Hyundai, the car company. He was a village guy, and he went to town to look for a job. He got a job at the port authority to, I guess, do sanitation. And while he was doing that, he envisioned that company. And today it's one of the biggest companies in the world. I mean, it's amazing, but just the mindset changes. And they don't have no natural resources. So they use their mind to generate for their country. They produce finished product in oil, in gas and diesel, but then if they don't have any natural resources, they purchase the crude oil and then they refine. And so I think if we open our minds, we can do likewise. But I think our biggest dilemma in this country is the population. We have to figure out how we can grow this population. It is too small. And so I have the tax base to generate the income to get certain things done. And as well, Jermaine said, in 1950, there was basically nothing there. They were literally dying from hunger. And they come to a conclusion and say, you know what? I will not let my children endure what I endured. And they change the mindset and they see a complete transformation. So it's amazing.
Well, Mr. Garvey, you were here earlier, I think a couple of weeks ago, talking about the Mind Education Program. So can you explain to us a bit more about what was discussed about that program at the forum and how out of the 25 countries that attended, Belize can benefit from such a forum?
Sure. Since 2010, we've been having this forum in Korea every year, of course, because when the pandemic started, for about 2 years we didn't have it. But the aim is to gather the ministers of youth and education that can join at that time to discuss this critical thing about changing the mindset education. The ministers who attend this forum, they get a chance firsthand to see what it is doing already in Korea. Like you heard Minister Ferguson talking about, he was impressed by these students who greeted. Anyone would think that these students, you have to pay them to do this work, but they pay a camp fee to attend the camp and then they give the service. That's beyond imagination, right? So we wanted to show the ministers firsthand about how the mindset education program is working, and then for them to collaborate, because you have different ministers from different countries with different situations and circumstances, but same issue, youth problem. So they can collaborate and then see how the mindset education can work in tandem with the already structured programs that they have. And one of the important things is that Minister got a chance to meet with the founder of IYF, Reverend Dr. Oksu Park. And also this gentleman here on the screen, he's the president of the International Mind Education Institute. These are good connections. Because from this it has paved now a stepping stone how Belize can pull the human resources of the IYF worldwide. So what we're looking at now, coming from this forum participation, how we can now get the Mind Education instituted across the entire sectors of Belize.
Minister, speak to us a bit about some of the gaps that we see within the Ministry of Youth and how such a program could be able to alleviate those or lessen those gaps.
I will talk about practically the Ministry of Youth and Sports because there's a combination. First of all, the budget is inadequate. I'm trying to reach out to all these youths across the country. What they have is very limited to make sure that make a real impact. And when I achieved that opportunity, I think in January, I said I do my best to figure out how I can improve and change the whole atmosphere. It is difficult, but I think I have good people on board, especially the director, Mr. Kevin Kado, and he's very adamant to make a change. So what he tried to do over a period of time to create training, have them going back to school. There was a graduation, I think 2 weeks ago, where I was absent. Unfortunately, 3 of those kids already passed away. One by murder, one by hanging himself, and one by natural causes. And so I noticed there's a vacuum, that when you finish working with them with a particular project, then there's no continuation. And so there is no creation for them. And so they left there and they wonder, this is it for me. No opportunities. And I am hoping that I can find a way so that when that relation is over, you can create some of them together, maybe 3 or 4 of them form a little company and be able to provide for themselves and their family. Because after the relation is over, they go back into the same old society.
What do you think is the cause of that reciprocation? So you are, once you're done, right? Once you're done with the project that you have provided for them, how can you then put the mind education program into that project that doesn't allow them to go back into the system?
Well, I met Jermaine, I guess maybe less than a month ago, and his wife, and I consider them to be very, very good people. And even though it's not in our curriculum for education, we can start to work with them with the Department of Youth. So I really invited him to meet the director, and I said we can set up a program where you can meet these young people on a regular basis and change their mindset. If you can do that, then it can be a total transformation. Speaking to the young people in Korea, they don't talk about drugs, they don't talk about sex, they don't talk about anything, because their mindset has been totally changed. And they want to now figure out what can they accomplish in life. And the opportunities are there for them in Korea. So when they reach that age and they say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, then they come and say, okay, we're going to figure out how we can provide for you. That is what we are lacking in Belize. As the Minister of Youth and Sport, I am very adamant, and on Tuesday I told Cabinet that give me a responsibility, we must come with certain resources to accomplish it. And they recognize that and they understand. So I believe as we progress, you want to see improvement in the Department of Youth and Sport, especially.
Minister, you said something that ticked a light bulb there for me just now, and it's changing the mindset. And when we speak about changing the mindset of young people, we need to know what young people's needs are. And there was recently the conclusion of the National Needs Assessment for Youth, I believe back in March by the Department of Youth Service, led by the Department of Youth Service. However, Minister, young people are saying that a 1% sample size to be able to set the standard for what the needs are of youth is not adequate enough in terms of the representation of what the entirety of youth needs are. Speak to us about what you feel about the National Youth Needs Assessment, and what are the strategies being implemented based off those that were prioritized in that assessment to be able to navigate how young people are included in decision making, how they are included, how their needs are being addressed, and certainly how the ministry sets forth to continue to develop young people and change that mindset.
Well, sometimes when we do things, the community or the country criticizes us. Over the last 3 months, the Department of Youth Services got, I think, about 6 vehicles to reach out to youths across the country of Belize. And that by itself is a plus, because we are now reaching out to them, even though we lack all the resources, but we are reaching out to them and trying to curb them and change their mindset. It is difficult because we grow up in a society where we're used to a certain way of life. So it is difficult for us to do it. But if we can concentrate with them and work with them and be able to provide for them after a certain dialogue and certain training, that will be the way to go. So I feel that it can be done. It will take time and effort. And with the whole needs assessment, I understand what is needed. Like, for example, hopefully next year, we want to take at least 200 youths to Mountain Pie Ridge. We can have a facility there to keep them there for 2 years and change their whole mindset, let them plant agriculture, create technology and different things. So we have the plan and we are going to implement it as soon as we can.
Is that something that, is that plan something that was developed based on this talking to the youths and seeing what their needs are?
Yeah, to a certain extent. But sometimes they might want to do certain things, but they have to figure out how you can pull them into it to say this is the way to go to figure out how we can change the whole situation in this country, especially in Belize City. So I believe it will take some time, it will take some hard work and dedication, but it can be done.
Minister, the young people have always spoken about having adequate representation of youth voices in national development spaces. How is the Ministry of Youth championing this desire from young people to be included in national development across the board, whether it be in the field of the economy, whether it be in environment, whether it be in the development of policies and strategies that are going to inherently impact us as young people and the future generation? How is the ministry leading the way in terms of inclusive participation of young people around national development spaces?
Yes, fortunately I just met with the Youth Parliament on Monday and they expressed the same desire. So I commit to them that we are going to rally for their cause. So every time there's an organization formed, I want to ensure that there's a representation from the youth department. Because it is important, because you are the future. And you have to start to probe and make sure it's available now, that for the future you can know exactly what you want to do. And the youth parliament was very energetic. They were maybe under 18 years old, but they know what they want to accomplish. So I will work with them as we go along.
Yeah, and I think, Minister, you said something that automatically triggered my thought. You said under 18 years old, but the scope of young people extends far beyond 18.
Yeah.
And yes, we are considered youth and we're both social entrepreneurs, right? But certainly, speaking to young professionals who have been in the field, who have been doing a lot of the hard work in our ministries across the country, how do we integrate their views in a more prioritized manner to be able to push forward the development of policies and also having them be the spokespeople for the voices of the younger, the under 18? Right.
No, I say it's a challenge for me. I have 3 difficult ministries: youth, sports, and transportation. So I have to figure out how I can share myself between the 3 of them to be effective. And I come to the conclusion that young people, youth is the most important to figure out how we can change their mindset. And it will take me some time with my directors. We are trying to strengthen the department. We are pushing on government, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And so once we can do that, you will see a serious change when it comes to youth and sport in particular in this country. So at your age, under the age of 35, I think then you have to be an integral part of what you want to accomplish.
Right.
I want to segue. I know that Brighton has more questions when it comes to the youth development progress, but I want to segue into your other, you said 3 different departments. So I want to segue into your transportation department. No, because South Korea and Singapore, they have great public transportation, so we could use that. I wanted to comment on the 1.5 million subsidy for public transportation that we just received. Can you speak to us about how that is going to help us in terms of public transportation?
All right. I don't know how the media misconstrued. It's only $861,000 benefiting about 90 bus operators across the country. What we did over the last 2 months, we recognized that the cost of fuel was rising, and the operators wanted to raise the cost to the customer, the commuter, by X, Y, and Z. And so when we saw what they wanted to go, I told them this is highly impossible, because while you are having the difficulty, the commuter also having difficulty to reach work because their pay is very small. And so we have to come to a compromise. And so I asked them to provide me with the total package and look at the package, and I had to take it to the cabinet and say, this is what the bus operators want. And if they wanted maybe additional $2 per person, cabinet said, no, this is highly impossible in this critical time. So I told cabinet the only solution then is to give a subsidy. And so we went back to the drawing table and we said, okay, we're going to draft this whole thing together and said, this is how it's going to work. And I was very surprised when I took it to the cabinet and I showed them the whole breakdown that they were very, accommodating. And I said, this sounds like a package that we can give back to the operators.
Right.
And so we agreed that they are going to get 91 cents on every gallon of fuel that they purchase, and we are going to cap the price at $13.50. So that is being kept at $13.50 for diesel for all the bus operators across the country. They are very, very happy. That's the first time something has ever happened to them. They have tried many times and nobody listened to them. So I sit down and we have a candid conversation. So no longer the minister is above them. We sit down like just normal men and women and we come to a conclusion, and this is the end result. And they are very happy.
So one more and then I'll make Brighton finish.
No, take your time.
I wanted to ask about the fee, right? So when a civilian pays for public transport, they get panded bus. What is that $7 covering? Is it just fuel? Is it just fuel that the $7 is covering when you go pan bus and you pay $7? That just fuel you to pay for, or you to pay for a seat, you to pay for quality of service, you to pay for fuel? What are you actually paying
very
for?
good question. You should pay for quality of service. But Belize, over the years, we feel that we are comfortable with what we have. When I became the minister, I told them, I'm sorry, this narrative has to change. And when I brought in Floralia, when I said, oh, Mr. Ferguson on the bus line, I don't have 1 cent in it. But I'm trying to show them where we want to go. And some of them are reluctant in the beginning. They don't talk to me as a minister. Oh, this minister come and he come and start to change the rules right away. But they come to realization. And I said, you know what? This might be the way to go. And so I actually went to National Bank and negotiated a package deal for them. So I think that that MOU will send with National Bank between today and Monday to tell them that we have a package for any one of them who want to come in and get a loan to upgrade. So when I was in Korea, I look at their whole bus system, and everything is superb. And everything is intact. And I say, you know what, I want to figure out how I can come back to my operator and figure out how we can create a package for them. So right now, somebody in Korea is looking for some buses between 2010 and 2012, because we can't afford brand new buses for everybody. And so that person will get back to me within another couple of weeks and say I can find maybe 50 buses, 2010, 2012, at so much. I'll come back to them and say, okay, I have found a package for you, for everybody, and the buses will cost so much. But they are no longer on their own. So they come to recognize that this minister, not only to put them under pressure to get it done, but to find the solution for them. And so hopefully by December, we are telling them, well, we'll find solutions so we can start that program.
Mr. Garvey, I want to bring you back into the conversation.
I had to segue.
But certainly, speak to us about how the International Youth Fellowship could be or is providing programs for young people to expand beyond just what one would perceive as being a youth integrated into a space to have discussions about youth. Speak to us about how the Youth Fellowship promotes integration of young people into national development.
Sure. We have a multiplicity of programs that we offer. But as I was listening to the questions being given to Minister about especially the young people's involvement in the decisions, it got me thinking, Minister experiences in Korea. And what was important, of course, we tend to look at economic resources. People, that's what they see. But what people don't see and think is important is the human development. That is what Korea focused on in the 1950s, developing the kind of mind that these people had that can change the economy, can change the country. What IYF is trying to do is to give the young people a certain kind of mind so that when they take their place later in the future as leaders, they can see the country changing, not necessarily relying on the the economic resources, but with the little that they have, they can change.
Right.
Minister made mention, Korea has not one drop of natural oil in Korea. But in 2012, they were the #1 exporters of oil. How is that possible?
Yeah.
The kind of mind that they had to think, they can sit back, I don't have anything, so we cannot do anything, or they can think a little bit deeper. They import oil, the crude oil, they refine it and then export it.
Right.
So that same kind of mindset is what we want to give to the people. Of course, we want to see the inclusion of the young people. That's important. But inclusion of the young people with the correct kind of mindset. There's a fact, you know, in the educational system, they're only given academia. I learn about accounts, I learn about architecture, I learn about the arts and the sciences. That is it.
Yeah.
But how do I take that now with a correct kind of mindset to help my community, to help my country?
Right.
This is what is missing. So even though we talk about mindset education, it's very much undervalued because we cannot see it. But this is the platform that everything else needs to be built on.
Yeah.
This is what we, the IOF, want to give to Belize across all sectors, in the educational system, in the youth departments, in the correctional service, in the police forces, in the communities, all across Belize.
You know what?
Certainly, we take this opportunity, Minister, to invite you to talk with us from the Y Lab and to be able to engage more about our involvement in national development and how we would like to partner with
collaborate
as well with the IYF and with government. But you said something just now, how do we make most of the little that we have?
Yes.
And this leads me now to sports, Minister, because I'm an athlete and I represent the national team. I'm also a professional athlete. One of the issues that we have here in Belize is that we do not have enough funding to be able to carry out programs for sports. And we have little in terms of funding, but we cannot make that be the all excuse to not have progress still in the arena of sports. How is the ministry now moving forward to ensure that the funding gap is being filled, is being lessened, to be able to integrate more programs that will be beneficial for young people and their development in sports?
From my perspective, I believe that the Ministry of Youth and Sports should almost be equal with the Ministry of Education in terms of funding, because we basically have the smallest budget. And just using cabinet, I introduced something that I want to accomplish. I am setting up a vehicle where I can raise money in the diaspora for youth and sports through Build Belize. What is Build Belize? Build Belize is our diaspora NGO that was formed by the diaspora relations in the United States. And so I want to launch that, I think in Chicago. I'll be the guest speaker next week for Chicago Day. And I'm asking everybody across America and across Belize to contribute $1 a week. So that is very minute. So people might say, okay, what is $1 a week or $4 a month? And that by itself, I believe, will add up. So hopefully, I got cabinet blessings on Tuesday that I can launch that program and to be able to raise funds for our young people and youth and sports, because it's very inadequate. And many times our athletes are going to the Caribbean, to wherever, and they come to the ministry and ask, what can you contribute? What we can contribute is very small. So if I can build that kitty, and then it will not be political, we have the sports council where you can apply to them for any assistance. One, we can build the kitty, and they will go to Build Belize, who will be the NGO to go and manage the funds. And so we want to see if we can give us $5,000 towards this program. And I said, okay, we have the money, we can give it to you. As the Minister of Sports right now, I get must about 50 requests every day. Well, partner wants sponsorship for this, for that. How can it be done when the resources are limited? So I hope that Build Belize should work.
Okay.
And once that work, then you will see one total transformation of sports in this country. When I took over, one more thing, when I took over the ministry, I realized that there was a vacuum. And so right now, I said I will start with basketball. We have nationwide basketball going on right now in the entire country, from Punta Gorda to Corozal, from San Pedro to Benque. And hopefully we'll have a climax maybe in August and figure that there's a champion. The volleyball over the last week was very enticing. I went to one game and I said, man, these young ladies are playing their best. So even though they were not victorious as a champion, I think we have to give them kudos. They did extremely well.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the impact of what a long-term athlete development system does. Because those young ladies have been under Lupita Kwans and Miss Yvette from Belmopan from
years.
age 8, 7, and they have been taught the fundamentals and they have gone through the process of athletic development. And that is what I think is lacking in terms of the overall systemic approach that we have in Belize, not having that long-term athlete development within the country and across schools, within universities, and then further at the national team level. So certainly we look to see how Belize would be able to implement the long-term athlete development programs across the board. But Minister?
I guess with the IYF and the mindset program, that is something that can definitely contribute to that.
Absolutely.
We really collaborate with the Ministry of Education, so I spoke to the Minister that we are presenting a plan from primary school all the way to tertiary institution. For example, I know of late before COVID, they were putting like primary school competition maybe, but the competition is only for 2 weeks, and that's over. So you need to give them more time. And the minister is now changing the curriculum for education that will give opportunity for young people to play more sports and activities in that regard.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But Minister, we could have this conversation all day.
Certainly.
But we are out
of time already.
Time completely. I mean, the time just goes so quickly, especially
We definitely wish we had two segments for sure.
Yes. But we invite you to come back and continue the conversation. We invite you to come back and talk about the mindset program, because I do agree, right, that you have to have a mindset in order to contribute to policy making and development. Thank you both so much for being here this morning, and come back please for another segment. And with that, we're going to take another break, and when we get back, Papa Churros, you like elotes? Okay. Stick around, we'll be back with Papa Churros. Stay tuned.